Welcome to the Beer and Gear podcast with Chris Taylor.
Podcast. This one's being recorded on a Friday night, so there is actually some beer involved, and it's not my fault, it's Chris's fault. But I want to welcome you all to Mr. Chris Green. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing really, really well, mate. I'm cracking into my first Stella. I have another 5 ready for reloads here, and I guess we'll just see how it goes.
Happy days, mate. I mean, you bring...
Cheers, by the way. Cheers, because it's been a long time.
Cheers to you too. I think last time was NAMM 2015, wasn't it, that we were actually together, I think?
Yeah, the last time was, as usual, the Laney Ibanez stand would have a keg of beer, the only keg of beer in the entire arena.
Didn't we go out, we went out drinking and playing and bowling with Killswitch Engage that year as well.
Oh, shit, yeah, we did. Was that the last time?
Yeah, that's when I literally got knocked off the curb on the way back to the hotel and smashed my knee up in front of that car.
Oh, yeah.
Because literally we were all going back at stupid o'clock in the morning and someone took a tumble, bumped into me on the shoulder, and I went straight off the curb because the curbs over there are obviously, if anyone noticing, Chris is actually in Atlanta, Georgia now, aren't you?
I am. I'm in Atlanta. So it is Atlanta, 5 o'clock, which is why we're starting.
Yeah. And I flew off the curb and literally my knee buckled. And for the next night, I think, I literally just lay in bed with like an ice pack on and I had to do the show the next day, and Farmer kept giving me like painkillers to keep me standing. But I still get it. When the weather gets cold here, my knee feels terrible, and it's all from that fall. But literally we were being the nice people and taking people home and stuff, but literally one guy in our crew literally took a wobble, hit me, and I flew into the traffic. So.
The thing is, mate, to pass an American driving test, I think all you have to do is have the ability to breathe. Right. I took my test in Chicago when I lived there, and I tried to get away with not driving for as long as possible. And in the end, the wife turns around and goes, "You're going to get your bloody license. I'm fed up with driving you around everywhere." So I'm like, "All right, are you allowed to swear on this show?"
Yeah, you did.
So I was like, "Fuck it, I'm going to go and do it."
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, I better have a little practice." We pull over in like a supermarket car park on the way. Drove it in like a couple of circles, didn't even stick it in reverse. Bam, went over to the driving place and passed my test. You know, we get in there and it's like, okay, drive down the road, take a right. Basically went in a circle around this neighborhood, came back and he went, "Oh, I'm pleased to tell you passed your driving test." And that's why there's drivers like that knocking you in the street, because no one knows how to bloody drive there.
Now, I remember that night because who's now my fiance, Lucy, we'd not been together that long at that point, and like by the time I was going to bed, she was kind of getting up, and we'd have this little chat in the morning. She's like, "How are you?" I was like, "Sorry, I got my legs up in the air in with ice on it. What happened? I nearly got run over." And of course, she started freaking out, and I just fell asleep like it was nothing. so for those sort of 7 hours I was asleep, she was freaking out. I was like, "Nah. It's not so bad."
Did you go to the hospital or anything? You didn't. You had to go to the. I had
to be back for the show next morning. Yeah, so I just painkillered up and carried on with it. Yeah.
Oh.
I think it was about 6 months later. I was stood at a bar with Lucy, and literally I was stood waiting for a drink. And my knee went the wrong way. You know, when you're standing there, and suddenly it went. I went, "Oh, that ain't good." You know, but it's all right. It's all in the name of it, and it was a cracking night, wasn't it? We ended up, at a really, really bad bowling alley with Killswitch Engage, and I'm sure we went somewhere first, didn't we? And it was that bad. It was organised by the American District, wasn't it? And we went somewhere for dinner and didn't turn up or something, so we ended up just leaving and ordering pizza and just drinking.
I'll be honest with you, mate. As most of the nights that me and you have shared, I remember laughter, booze, company, and the rest is just like pieces that I think my brain's trying to fill in. That's pretty much story of my life, really. But especially when we're together, that's pretty much.
I think so. We tend to keep it pretty loose, don't we, and just go with the flow.
Mate, it's like I shit you not. That stand, the Laney Ibanez, all the crew And I've been there, I don't know how many years I've been in that place now, and I've met, so many of the people because I, was working with the Guitar Guru Network guys, and so, we'd go and see vendors all the time. By far, the nicest, kindest, and funniest bunch of people in the entire event.
Oh man, that's great.
The entire event.
I used to love it because my particular spot there really, apart from being going there early and building the stand with people and being the artist rep and doing the sign-ins, was literally I was front of house because I was the first person to say hello to people and introduce them or show them the gear. It was I guess it's because I'm approachable. I hope so. Anyway, but it was always a fun stand, man. It was always a good stand, and we always managed to get loads of people that weren't nothing to do with us on our stand. You turn around and there'd be amazing players that had nothing to do with the brand, just there hanging out.
Yeah. Well, me and Simon Farmery, for those people listening that don't know, he was a bass player that I worked with. We're talking about, don't you?
He's coming on soon.
Oh, all right then. We'll see him in a couple of years.
yeah.
But he was endorsed with Laney, but I wasn't endorsed with Ibanez or Laney, and I was like, yeah, let's go and do some playing over at the stand. You remember we came down and we played
you played loads of Rubicon Cross stuff on the
That's
stand,
right.
And it was great. Just plugged into you were at the time you were plugged into the Iron Art Studio, which is the 15-watt rack thing, into a 1x12. He was playing the bass version, the rack, the smaller wattage rack one, and literally it was just a small gig with the backing tracks through the amps, wasn't it? And just let's just play. It was great.
And it was probably quieter than I play in my bedroom.
Yeah,
but because you've got the noise police, at NAMM, which makes it really hard to crank anything up because they'll come and shut you down. And all I remember is me and him just headbanging and playing, and this crowd forms, probably nothing to do with what we were playing or the sound of the amps. They're just who are these two buffoons headbanging? They probably thought I was they're just having a little jam. That's nice.
No, it was great, man. It was great. I do want to go back. It's funny enough, I keep getting invited back to NAMM by Line 6 because I've done quite a bit with Line 6 since leaving the industry per se. But they're always, quite vocal with, you need to just come over and just enjoy it. And I'd love to just go over as a fan.
As a punter.
Yeah. And go and, see everything. Because literally my time there was I was on the stand all the time. I might get 20 minutes here and there to quickly run around.
Right.
Quick look at stuff, and then the show's over and you've got to pack it down. So it wasn't, I never actually had the chance of walking the floors. Whenever I did, it was before the show started. I'd go early and I'd go and see the Fender booth, the Marshall booth. I'd go and have a look at stuff before anybody came into the place. But to do that,
that is kind of a nice way to do it, though. To be honest,
it is good. Yeah, it is. It does kind of work. Yeah.
I realised pretty quickly that I was that I had actually a problem with being in those kind of crowds of people, because you spend years. It's like you spend years on the stage where you're totally in control of your surroundings, and then maybe you go and do a meet and greet or something like that. But for the most part, it's only your bandmates that are around you, or you're behind a table signing stuff. And then all of a sudden you go to NAMM and it's, I don't know how many thousands of people are at that thing.
It's relentless.
But it's hard to convey to a listener what that event is like if you've never been there, because it's almost like it's in 3 aircraft hangars that have been sort of stuck together, and they're 5 stories high or something, and it's just 500 drum kits playing at the same time, 1,000 guitar amps playing at the same time. It's just absolute ambient noise nightmare.
It is.
And it's total sensory overload.
Even the noise of just people generally walking around and talking is louder than the demos. And that stuff just builds and builds and builds and builds. And that's why so many people come home and they say they've got anthrax. Because literally, your throat is stripped because you're talking louder than you believe you are when you're trying to talk to somebody. Everyone comes back with a sore throat. Everyone comes back with the biggest cold ever because of meets and shaking hands with everybody. people got it. That's the common term was Namthrax. You come back
You're right, the Namthrax. I forgot about that. The Namthrax. I've had it. I think there's only 1 year that I escaped the Namthrax, and that I nailed my technique for wandering around. I've got some really nice over-ear headphones to make it bloody obvious that I'm listening to something and not accessible for a chat.
Yeah.
And I'd put on some dark sunglasses, and that was it. I'd wander around, and everyone probably thought I was listening to like metal or something, but actually I have this 80s pop playlist that's got shit like Tears for Fears, all the, you know, Aztec Camera, and all of these like weird 80s pop music, because it's all like happy and chirpy. So like I'm just wandering around, everybody wants to, you know, I'm just like, this is fucking great. I don't have to talk to anyone. There's no noise around me.
It's also the perfect antidote from hearing 100,000 people play the same fucking riffs.
Yeah, slightly different times.
Yeah, you got it.
In fact, that's what it is. It's like when they do those world record challenges where it's like 500 drum kits and we're all going to play a Foo Fighters song. It's like that, but everyone started half a beat later than everyone else.
And a lot of the guitars are microtonally out of tune with the one that's playing over there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Everyone's practiced their granny licks, you know, the licks that you want to show off to Gran when she asks you how your guitar playing's come on. I'm giving up. I just go in there and they're like, here, try this out. I'm like, I'll tell you exactly what I'm like. They'd be like this. They'd be like, try this out. I'm like, all right. Yeah, it's really good, like that.
That's exactly what I do. That's exactly what I do. I had this
because who's going to be impressed? There's no point me sitting there and shredding because there's a bloody 8-year-old Japanese kid like next door doing everything I've wanted to do since I was a kid.
Correct. Twice as fast.
Bloody child prodigies. I'm not jealous.
No, it's a nightmare. I think, let's say, because nowadays, it's learning how to do something like, especially guitar, is so more accessible than when I was a kid. And when you're a kid, it's like you have to either get lessons, learn to records, buy books. Now they just go on YouTube and there's some dude breaking down how to, like breaking the code guy, how to pick slant and how to effortlessly rip apart things like sweep pick and economy picking, that kind of stuff.
I know, you wanker, because you know I'm one of those bastards that does it.
Yeah, it's like, you know what I mean, though? You're like going...
But that's the thing, isn't it? Because like I remember... Do you remember Eugene's Trick Bag, the piece of music that's at the end of that Crossroads movie? I still think that that's one of those holy grail pieces of guitar playing that even now, if I ask some mates, you know, play that, no one really nails it. There's something about that piece of music that's just really bloody hard to play.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, my dad had this thing. Do you remember there was actually a thing called an Ibanez Rock and Play?
Yeah.
And it looked like a little Walkman. It was silver, but it had this one amazing function. It had a half speed function.
So the take down.
Yeah. Exactly. So you could. So I had to sit there, my dad's microphone, record it in front of the TV speaker, press play on the video.
Yeah.
VHS.
VHS for all you that don't know what it is. It was before them DVDs.
Like a giant cassette. So.
And if you had Betamax, you had to saw the side of it to fit it in.
Yeah, you would. Betamax. Oh, there you go. Oh, the MySpace of recording technology. So like there it is, like with the microphone in front of the TV, record. So I record the fast guitar part, hit slow, and of course it's not like technology now. Like I have this program called Transcribe where it's like I can slow down the speed without changing the pitch.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, here we go. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Painstakingly went through that thing. I reckon it took me 4 days to get through it. The next week, a new magazine comes out, Guitar Techniques. Guess what's the first transcription in that fucking magazine?
Eugene's Trick Bag.
Every note. Guthrie Govan has transcribed every note of Eugene's Trick Bag. And I'm like, there's me with the rock and play. I'm like.
Speaking of Mr. Vi, then, isn't that video he's put out tonight, the legend?
I saw it as advertised. I didn't get a chance to have a look though.
Basically, what he's done, because he did an interview last week with a brilliant YouTube channel, Music Is Win. I mean, Tyler Larson's channel. It's really, really, really good. Well, it's worth. He's got like a couple of million followers, so that he does what he does really great. But he interviewed Vi, and it came across that Vi's got 2 injuries at the moment. One of them is got trigger finger, and that was through holding a chord down for too long during lockdown, trying to get a different technique going. There's an operation there. He's also had shoulder surgery, so he sort of can't. So he sort of can't play at the moment because he didn't play on that video. But tonight he's put a track out and a video, mate. He's literally got his arm in a sling, right? He's got the guitar like that, so the arm's in the sling and it's holding the horn like that, right?
Right.
And he plays the whole track with one hand. It's all legato, the whole lot. And he's just doing this, and I'm thinking that's just taking the piss now.
I do think that guy is a musical genius. He's whenever you talk about guitar players, when we talk about famous guitar players, there are always obvious names that people bring up that actually usually bring like an eye roll to most people. Like you say Steve Vai, and they're like, oh, well, yeah, I kind of knew you were going to say that. John Petrucci, Paul Gilbert. Yeah, and I'm a fan of all those players. I don't care if they're obvious popular players. Steve Vai is literally the only guitar player that when I went to go and see him when I lived in England, I literally cried watching him play this song. And I was kind of like, it was like the end of a movie when you kids around, you're like, I'm not going to cry.
It's like the end of Con Air when he meets with his daughter, and he gives her the bunny, and it's all dirty,
half-burnt bunny.
Yeah.
It's like
good name for a band.
I'm not going to cry, but I did, and I looked around, and there was maybe a dozen people around me that were also crying. Right, I'm like, all right, at least it wasn't me. He stops the song. It might have been Tender Surrender. That might have been what he was playing.
What a song.
I know, what an amazing song.
Yeah.
But he went off on one on his own. Do you know what I mean? Just as he does.
Yeah.
And the band stopped, and it was eerily quiet. And he walks up to the microphone and he goes, wow, did you feel that? And I was like, yeah, I fucking did. Like, it's bizarre. And this is what I love about guitar playing, is that although most of us end up in bands with singers, your normal rock band format.
Yeah.
There's something about music without lyrics that can move you in a way that I think music with lyrics can't do.
I agree.
And I think that all stems back to classical music, when it was all in instrumentation, unless it was opera or something like that, but that's how I like approaching music. That's how I like approaching solos. I don't even know if you know this, man, but I did like an instrumental EP a few years back now, just like 5 tracks on it. Unveil, yeah. And nice little plug there. Do you like my way in there? There's a nice little segue.
I like the way you unveiled it.
There's a track on there called Undefeated, which I wrote like after my old man died. There are emotions that you sometimes just can't put down in pen and paper, into words.
Yeah.
So I wrote this piece of music, and to this day, it's probably my favorite piece that I've written, because there were so many like classical kind of chord movements that I had people emailing me saying, wow, I don't know what that song's about, but like I feel really moved when I listen to it, which, as you know, is like the highest compliment really you can receive from anybody.
Yeah, it's huge.
Apart from maybe saying that you have a sound about your playing that people recognize. That's probably the number one thing. And that's having that and having people react to it and say, I was really moved by that piece of music. I mean, it's just amazing. Just makes you think it's like there's no words. You're just doing this with notes. And that's and then you can go and hug a tree and do what you want. I'm at one with the universe.
But I think that's brilliant, because there's a lot of these players, like you say, Because of basically a lot of the players now, the younger players, and I know quite a few of them are starting, they're really into things like Avenged Sevenfold. To them, that's like Sinister Gates is like he's the shredder, but they're missing out on the Vires and the Satrianis and those guys that literally can evoke any emotion from you that they want when they're playing.
I agree.
I mean, let's say Tender Surrender is a great example of that, but also my dad, God rest his soul, loved listening to For the Love of God. You know, and I used to hack at that when I was 16, trying to learn to play it because I was so inspired by it.
Yeah.
But I'd put the Vi DVD on and let him do it live. My dad just appreciated that piece of music so much. He just got it. And Dad wasn't a musical person, but he loved the way it would start soft and build and build and build.
Right.
And then when it gets to the actual main solo bit, it's the release. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's gets to that point and he's like, boom.
I just got goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah, it does that too, doesn't it? You know, even from the way like he starts out on the neck pickup, and then it builds more tension because it goes to the bridge pickup, and the pinch harmonics start coming out because every note means something more.
You're right.
As it builds, everything he hits means something. It's like he builds a dynamic, isn't it? From being quiet and lovely and smooth.
No, you're right. The variations on the melody each time,
and it digs, and when he goes for it, it just all flies out. Then he goes back to after that, and it's basically like, now back to the melody again.
You're right.
He's
nailed that formula, hasn't he? Because like starting off on a neck pickup, it's an odd choice.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You know, most people, including myself, will start off, unless it's like you're starting off with a sweep picking piece, you generally start off on your bridge pickup.
Yeah.
But he's done it perfect. Starting the neck pickup, and then when it kicks up a gear, flick it on, and he's got all that. You get all your pinches and stuff, and then he takes the same lead line later and throws it up an octave, so it's still all moving. I tell you who else done it? Satriani. Always with me, always with you.
Yeah, totally.
Another perfect example. And my mum, you know, she'd happily like be pissed out of her head, like dancing around the lounge to that one, being, "Oh, I like this song. What's this one?" You know.
It's like my dad used to like summer song as well, things like that, because like, you know, it's just summer song is like a rock song that needs a singer that doesn't need one, if you know what I mean. It's a perfect driving rock song from the time, which could have had lyrics singing Satch's melody, but didn't need them in the end because it was fine as it was. You know,
and you know what? It's one less person to pay.
Exactly. I mean, I go back to my God rest his soul, Eddie Van Halen. Like his always thing was, I don't really care who's singing. I don't listen to the words anyway. The music has to stand up as it is, and the solo is a song within a song. That's the way I look at it. So if the music doesn't stand up, as long as the music's good, I don't care who's singing on it. The music has to. The music has to tell the story. You know what I mean? So
at least he's honest, man. I wish I was that famous. I could get away with saying that stuff.
Well, yeah, he could say anything he wanted, couldn't he? Really? So, like, you know, we're in like a bit of a quandary at the moment over here. I mean, we're still technically we are still in lockdown. I mean, we've I don't know if you're catching up on the UK news, but April the 12th over here, pubs can open, but they can't open their doors. So you can go to the pub, but you can't go in them. So you can be served outside in April. So if you want to sit outside between 5 and 7 if the sun's shining, have a couple of beers and something to eat, that's fine. But don't be there at 8:30 because it's too cold. Or, you know, that's what they're saying. You know, pubs can open, but outside. May the 17th, my birthday, it's going to go back to as it was before this latest lockdown. So that's the table service only, and wear a mask when you stand up and get the loo, or, you know, that kind of thing, which is fine. And apparently if that all goes well, in June, everything's open. Gigs are allowed again. Everything's back to normal. What's it like in the States? We've had a year of like being at home completely here. What's it like where you are?
Well, listen,
from an expat, let's hear.
From an expat. Well, what I do?
What like that in my day during the war?
I do look in on the English news, and I still talk to a lot of my mates in England, especially my family, and it's really hard to hear what's going on over there because, quite frankly, over here, you wouldn't really know anything's going on. And it's probably because, for the most part, Americans have always had this kind of, hey, don't tell me what to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, just I'll do what I want. I've got these amendments. I'm keeping my guns.
You can't tell me to wear a mask. I'll shoot you.
And you get every day. My wife was in a hospital today, and in walks some geezer, and the nurse is like, "Can you please put a mask on before you come in here?" And she's like, "Oh, this whole thing's just bullshit," and like, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Science. No, it's all a conspiracy. The Earth's fucking flat and the moon's made of cheese. Do you know what I mean? They're just like, they're everywhere. Yeah. Like just tinfoil hat wearing fucking idiots. Right. And so you go to somewhere like Florida. I went down to see CJ from Firehouse in December. Flew down there. We went to Disney. I mean, we're in Disney. You can't go to a pub. I'm at Disney. And as soon as you go to Florida, Florida's like, listen, I don't know what you guys are all talking about, but I refuse to believe that there is some worldwide pandemic that's killing people. So people are just walking around with no masks. Georgia is almost like that. I've been out a couple of nights in packed bars, where you think it's just going to be everywhere is, distanced by 6 feet. But the place is bloody rammed, and everyone's like, well...
And there's gigs going on as well. There's gigs.
There's gigs. Now, some of them are getting cancelled. Texas and Mississippi just got rid of the mask mandate. So Texas and Mississippi, it's basically like, it's gone.
Right. Georgia
is more of a, all right, you know what, we'll wear the masks, but only as long as you tell me to put it on, You go to Tennessee. I visited some friends up just outside Nashville, and as you stop at the petrol stations on the way to, it's like everyone's got a mask on in Atlanta. You get through to Chattanooga, and it's like half people. You start getting towards Nashville, nobody. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's pockets all over the states where it's like they just don't care, which is the reason I got my second vaccine jab 2 days ago.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'm going to roll with the science right now and just hope that if enough people do the same, we'll be able to clamber our way out.
It's the same over here. I mean, I'll be down for the way it's moving. Technically, in a month's time, I'll get called for my vaccine for being 40, 40 and over. And I know plenty of people that are like against it, but I realise that I'm going to take it because if it comes to the fact that I want to go to a festival and they say, well, you can't get in unless you've got proof of this, I'm having it. I'm going in.
Right.
You know what I mean? Things like that. Which I don't know if it'll be actually enforced, but I can see it. I can see it.
I mean, I can see Live Nation seeing an opportunity to make some extra dollar there by having a COVID vaccine inspection team that
I surely can.
Adds another 10 quid to your ticket price.
Well, I can also see, the amount of insurance for promoters and stuff is going to go up massively.
Oh yeah, liability insurance.
In the UK at the moment, obviously Download's been cancelled. I mean, Download fell just a week before the date when they could say everything should be okay by then. So wow. They've had to cancel next year, and they've got a great lineup of Kiss and Iron Maiden.
But they shifted it, right? They shifted the lineup, same lineup.
They've shifted it again. They've shifted to next year. I mean, I think it's amazing that it sounds like it's 1985 when you go to a gig and it's still Kiss and Iron Maiden. But that's another story. I mean, that's like where's the new guys? But
let's get onto that. So, because I've seen these arguments breaking out, and you get people that are younger, and I'm saying this. I'm talking about people that are 25, 30 years old. That are like, when are we going to not have like a 1988, lineup? And to me, I'm like, when you get bands that are as good as a 1988 headliner. I mean, that's my answer.
If there's nothing that's come up to take that on, or nothing that's got to that level that sustained that level of success album per album.
Well, I'll give you one band.
Or been an absolute fad. I mean, at one point, let's go back to 1999, 2000. Korn were the biggest metal band in the world.
Yep. Yep.
Within 2 years, no one cared about Korn.
No.
They still do some great, amazing gigs and get some great slots in their fan bases there. And I love Korn. I think they're great. I think what they did was fantastic. All right, they've had hit and miss albums, but as a concept, they've done to move from basically really rootsy 7-string stuff to basically making sonic soundscapes with it. And
right.
They're clever, but at one point, everybody dressed like Korn. And Limp Bizkit, everybody wanted the baggy jeans and the baggy with the chains, the chain wallets and all that shit. Well, I still wear a chain wallet because I'm cool. But I'm just saying, but it went from being like people like us that would have the long hair and like the black t-shirt and the skinny jeans with the high tops, and we're into metal. Suddenly, if you're into metal, you had to wear an Adidas tracksuit and have dreadlocks. It was like chav metal. If that means, you know what I mean?
I've naturally evolved into the tracksuits now. Like, I'm at the stage where I'm not even trying to be cool. I'm just like, I carry a snot rag around with me. I'm wearing Star Wars pajamas because I don't care because I'm in lockdown.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at. Well, I'll tell you something. We talked very quickly about Avenged Sevenfold earlier, and like them or not, I think they're a headline band. I think that they have a show that could be a headline. They have headlined Friday night at Download Mainstays twice. I saw it, and I thought all that was missing was. You were there, yeah. I was there. I saw you. all that was missing was the kind of stage show that Rammstein brings to the table. Like it needed to be that grander scale, I think, of I don't think the location helped them that night, because I know you were there. I remember now we hung out a bit in the VIP bit and stuff like that. But what didn't help them was maybe the location and the history that it had, because I remember them playing All Hail to the King or something, the one that sounds like Sad But True a lot. Oh yeah, and they played it, and the whole crowd sang the lyrics back to them. That's right. Sad but true. Yeah. Like, it was like you pick. I mean, the whole. Everybody was like, "Hey!" If anyone watching this hasn't seen that mashup, there's a great YouTube mashup where they put the two songs over each other. Yeah, and it's the same tuning. It's the same tempo. Same drum sound. Yeah, they EQ'd the drums to sound like the Black Album. I think they even used the Black Album snare as well. That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me. But, I mean, shit. I'm surprised they got away with it. But I was there. I was there, and you're in the crowd, and they start this big heavy riffs, and it literally does sound so much like, instead of going do dum dum, it's like do diddle dum dum, and it's the same tempo, and the whole crowd are like, "Hey, I'm your life." It's like, oh, That's one of the better moments of Download. I got to be honest. I was singing Sad But True. I think you were as well, were you? Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, I miss Download, mate. I miss it. It's, to me, it's always going to be Donington. Yeah. My first ever show was going there in 1990, and I was 15 years old, and it was Whitesnake, Aerosmith, Thunder, Poison, Choir Boys. Yeah. Unfortunately, I was a huge Poison fan at the time because I didn't really know anything about music. Nothing wrong with that. We'll get onto that in a minute because. Okay. So that was my guilty pleasure. But I remember when Whitesnake came on stage, and actually it wasn't even Steve Vai. It was Adrian Vandenberg. You haven't said it right. On that gig, it wasn't Steve Vai. It was Steve Vai. That's right. Yeah. The 7-string sorcerer. Yeah. I bought it actually. I went and bought the DVD. I think Frontiers re-released the DVD and the footage, and then they did an anniversary thing last year. I don't know if you watched it. There was an anniversary thing, the 30th anniversary. I did Slip of the Tongue, wasn't it? Yeah. And so I watched that one as well. But I remember when they came on stage, and he introduced Adrian Vandenberg, who I had no idea who he was, the Flying Dutchman, and everyone booed, and he told him to fuck off. And then he played it's called like Argento in what, I don't know what he called it, Yeah. But it captivated me. And my dad was at home recording everything on cassette because it was live on BBC One, right?
I've got the same recording upstairs that my brother.
You have? I've got it sitting up there.
The BBC One, yeah.
And I went back and listened to it, and that was the time when I was like, I really want to be a lead guitar player. Like I was into Poison and Tiger Tales and Pretty Boy Floyd, and I loved all of that glam stuff. Enough's enough. But that really was when I was like, wow, these people are fucking serious. Like I thought Talk Dirty to me was going to be a real hard solo to nail, and they're just doing all this shit. You know, they're Steve Vai's slinging the guitar around the neck and all this kind of shit.
Coming down from a rope.
Right. Yeah, Rudy Sarzo's got the bass on top of his head and he's playing. I'm like, who are these people? And that really, I think, was the beginning of when I thought I've got to step it up. Yeah. You know, so
were you already playing then?
I was already playing because I started at 11.
This is really quite cool because normally I have to sort of ask the question. I enjoy asking the question and where it all started, but this is kind of organically going there.
Well, that really is where I started at 11 because my dad was in music. My dad played bass in Cliff Richard's band. He played bass for Chuck Berry. He played bass for a bunch of people. He was on top of the pops, like, you know, all the time. He was on this TV show on Channel 4 called Unforgettable. Like, he was a professional musician. He just played wherever the money was, right? Yeah. And so I grew up with bands being around me and around the house, doing rehearsals in the house and all this kind of stuff. And I just loved it. I don't know what it was about it. I just loved it. And like there was a banged out old acoustic in his study, and I'd sneak in there and I'd just fuck around on the strings. How would I do it? I didn't know what any of this was. This shit could just like go away. I didn't care. And I'd just be going, let's go. Yeah, I'd just be picking away at the strings. I didn't know what the frets were about. And eventually, he'd obviously heard me doing this, and he was like, you're not going to give up on this, are you? So he taught me how to play a couple of things. And my initiation into guitar playing was the Shadows. It was all Hank Marvin. And because his mates were in the Shadows bands, keyboard player Cliff and Griff, who was the bass player, I got to go and see the Shadows, and I went backstage, and Hank Marvin showed me how to play a few things and stuff.
How cool is that? How cool is that?
Now people are just be on that. Oh, it's fucking hilarious. But I'm like, no, it was amazing because
that's ace. That's brilliant. Yeah.
So after that, Hank Marvin's like, what guitar are you playing? I'm like, oh, I've got this really nice black Encore. You know, and he's like, oh, well, you probably need to something like this, you know, and obviously shows me his red Strat. So somewhere between Brighton and home, I'd convinced my dad, I've got to upgrade. It's not me. Hank's told me. And so the next day we're in the guitar shop. Of course, my dad, being as cheap as he is, was no way going to spring for a Fender Stratocaster. I don't even know in 1987 how much a Stratocaster would have been. But he points me towards this Marlin Sidewinder, which is a...
Oh, I remember those. Yeah.
The Strat lookalikes.
Did it have an ultra lacquered neck, like it was covered in Ronseal?
Yeah, and ultra high action. You know, it was like it was better suited for being played like as a xylophone than it was a guitar.
Yeah, good for slide.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is funny. See, I go in there and like Dad's like, he really wants a guitar like something that looks like a red Strat. And the guy goes, well, I hand it like this. Now, the night before, Hank Marvin had been saying, now, listen, when you do look for a guitar, make sure you look for this and look for that. And my dad said, he regaled the tale to me later. He goes, the way you went in there, you walked in, you grabbed the Strat copy off of this guy, and you looked at it, you went, well, I was playing with Hank Marvin last night, and he said that I need to look down the neck.
Oh, you were looking at how straight the neck was and all that.
All this stuff. And the guy was like, fucking wanker, what's he talking about? I just thought I was like some little twat. I mean, I was a little twat, but I was telling the fucking truth.
Nothing wrong what you were saying.
And that's where it started. I played all of that stuff, and I played Small Faces, Dire Straits, the Kinks, all of the stuff that I was hearing around the house until I heard the opening notes of Appetite for Destruction coming out of my sister's bedroom. And I was just like, what the fuck is that?
What a pivotal album.
It changed rock. I believe it changed rock.
I think it did. I mean, to me, I'm 7 years younger than my brother, and the reason I turned out the way I did with my music tastes and everything else to do with that will start with guitar, the lot, everything. Let's be honest. If I didn't like guitar, I wouldn't have had the career that I had or anything like that. It fit. I'm totally aware of the fact that changed my life completely. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
Was the fact that he was 7 years older and like he was literally, you know, when I was 7, he was 14, and he was getting Appetite Destruction at 1987, and he was getting these singles and buying these albums and spending his pocket money on records and tapes, you know, and I absorbed it all. So I was the guy that was in the kid. There's photos of me. I'll fast and it's funny. There's me at 7 years old with a blue Guns N' Roses t-shirt on. We used to get printed because they didn't make the merch that small. It's only little. And also, we're the place that printed them. They didn't print a black t-shirt that small, so I had to have a blue one. But there's me with like more wristbands than I wear now. 7 years old with a Guns N' Roses t-shirt on and stuff, because that was
with a healthy selection of blue t-shirts
and a nice and a mullet. Yeah, the mullet used to get the mullet used to get so long before Dad would be like, "Nah, cut that." You know,
you can't escape it if you're growing your hair out from short hair. The mullet is unfortunately part of the process.
But at the time, it was 1987, so it was trendy to cut your fringe a little bit and keep the back going, wasn't it? You know, it was party time at the back, business at the front, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe they're making a comeback. I've seen a lot of them over here. Well, I live in the south anyway, so
we've talked about a few, haven't we?
there's I mean, seeing a mullet on a geezer in a pickup truck. That's daily life for me down here. You know, I mean, there's 11 finger beings everywhere around here. Actually, we're only about 2 hours away from where they shot Deliverance.
I didn't know it was shot that close. Yeah, but
yeah, just pucker up. Yeah, I was
talking about it to my fiance Lou. She's like, no, that looks coming back in now. Mullets will be back in, and I'm thinking, really? Shall I go and cut a fringe? I'll speak to Chris. Is he going to cut a fringe? Because if he ain't, I ain't.
No round here, mate.
Because we're the same. We've got the same length hair. You know, it's like it's all the same length. There's no coiffing going on.
No, man. That'd be a super mullet. That'd be a super mullet. I mean, I think I've fallen out of and gone back into fashion twice since the late 80s. Do you know what I mean? There's been times where
stay the course.
It's just stay the course. It always come full circle. It always come round. Now, there's been some dark years. Especially in England, where they're not really a fan of people with long hair in England. I'll give it that.
Sometimes they're not, though. No.
I've been called, what's the Yeti? I had random people screaming Yeti across the road at me. Wanker a lot, you know, just for having long hair. I used to live in Brighton, and there's one street that all the clubs are on down there.
Yeah, but Brighton's like
it's the gay capital of Europe.
It's like
there's no two ways about it.
It's like Santa Clara for vampires, isn't it?
It is basically. And what better thing to do than living in Brighton than to join a band called Pride, where the keyboard player who'd named the band didn't even think really about, you know, could there be any ramifications of this?
What you mean? The big festival
the big festival, the LGBTQ. You know, sorry, I can't. It's too. So my brain doesn't work as quick as it used to, mate. That's why I'm drinking the Stella. Cheers, by the way.
No worries.
So that's the funny part, actually, because like as I progressed through other bands and stuff, and I joined that band Pride, the Pride Festival would happen.
I'm sure you meant it was about like a Pride Alliance or something, you know.
It was just maybe like, hey man, you know, it might be 1999, but like we're really proud to be musicians that stuck up, you know, with the genre of music.
We're proud to be gay.
No, it's like, no, you're obviously a homosexual. And in hindsight, what I should have done, all of those thousands of CDs that never sold, I should have just taken them down to Stamford Park and sold them on the Pride weekend, because no one would. It's not like they would have got out a CD Walkman, had a little listen, and be like, "Oh no, that's not my kind of thing." You know, I could have got rid of all of them.
You could have done, yeah.
But I didn't capitalize on the situation at the time. But that was a funny time living in Brighton there, mate, because that was really where guitar playing got like serious for me. You know, I realized that all of that music we listened to from the late 80s died in like 1993, right? I guess it was tail end of 92 into 93. Nirvana happens and it kind of all goes to shit. And you're either going to get into heavy music or you're going to get into progressive music.
Yeah, you're right.
And I chose progressive. I bought the Dream Theater Images and Words album, and I basically just buried my head in prog rock until I went to Guitar Institute in London. And that's a game changer right there. You know what I mean? So I really recommend any guitar player that if they get the chance, if it's early enough, you know, and they don't have to take a year out break in their work, that go to one of those schools and just like fully immerse yourself.
Who were your tutors? Because they had some amazing people that used to write in guitar magazines there, didn't they?
They did. My two main teachers were Dave Kilminster.
Oh wow.
He now plays in Roger Waters' band.
He does, yeah.
And the other one, who was maybe the most influence on me at the time, was a guy called Sean Baxter.
Skunk's son.
Yes. And he released at the time.
Amazing player and transcriber as well.
Yeah, and he'd only just released this album called Jazz Metal, and I mean now nearly every guitar player that I see on YouTube is trying to adopt that fusion sound of jazz, basically Guthrie Govan sound. Yeah. You know, everyone kind of wants a bit of that, the bit of the odd sounding notes and the high information stuff, and it's not really my jam. But I can see why they go there, because like after your technique's down, they're probably like, well, what's next? What's more difficult than this? And you know, the obvious choice is to go deep into the wormhole of music theory, which is where all of that shit lies. Yeah. But Sean was a master at sweep picking, and he just the way he played. Dave was super aggressive. It was shotgun technique. He had pointy headstocks. He had half pink hair. He wore ripped t-shirts. That was my jam. I'm like, I want to be you. Yeah. And he just won Guitarist of the Year, 1993, with his Sundance track. Guthrie won it the year that I went to Guitar Institute, and that's where his journey started. But Sean Baxter, Dave Kilminster were the big ones. Barry Langton was my jazz teacher. He was super cool. Ian, I wish I could remember Ian's second name. He was my blues teacher. But anyway, it was an amazing experience. It was playing 8 hours a day, and it transformed me from knowing how to play a C chord one place on the guitar to coming out knowing how to play it not only in 5 bar chord positions, but knowing how to play it in 3 inversions in each position on the neck, knowing all the modes, knowing how to read music.
That's amazing.
All of it. And then, as it's famously said from most jazz musicians, you know, they say, what do? Learn all the theory, forget it, and then just play. Which sounds like bullshit, but it's absolutely true, because like I have taken a clinical approach to music before, and I think that shows in the song. And then now I just tend to write music where I'll try and think of the melodies and then play them. And on one of the tracks that I wrote called Once Forgotten, which is called that because I wrote it on the plane.
I forgot it.
On my laptop. Yeah. No guitar. I penciled everything in MIDI.
Yeah.
Like it's 8-minute prog rock song. And I'd had sleeping tablets and drunk Red Bull, and I woke up and just completely forgot that I'd written it and found it a year and a half later.
Oh, wow.
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 But anyway, that is like one of those songs that's got, it's using a lot of melodic minor, it's using a lot of whole tone, a lot of just odd sounding stuff, not for the sake of it, but just because at the time I was like, that's just how it sounded in my head.
Yeah,
that's where music theory's handy. But one of the best tuition DVDs that I ever bought, VHS, was Marty Friedman's Melodic Control.
Do you know what's really interesting about you saying that? There's a guy that one of my very closest friends in the world, was my second podcast. His name's James Boyle. If you look at if anyone watches this and wants to scroll down, he's on there. And he's actually a martial artist school owner now. He's got 4 or 5 different schools. He runs his own brand of martial arts. He used to be a guitar player, and literally he fantastic 8 hours a day guy. He's my theory guy. You know, he'll tell me what I'm playing within a second. Be like, you're doing that. Earlier on, he messages me and he's like, "Who are you interviewing tonight?" And I said, "Chris Green." And he said, "Oh, okay." And literally before he even asked, I just sent him a link, and he messaged me back.
I know that wanker.
No. His message back was, "What an amazing player. I'm sensing a lot of Marty Friedman in here. Very awesome."
Wow.
Hasn't he nailed that?
Yeah. He has, because
I mean,
I would like, as guitar players, we all would like to think that there is something about our playing that is slightly different. But as time goes on, and and the Guitar Wizards era grows and becomes now 5 decades or whatever, it's hard to really kind of get your own voice. You look, really, it's more like it's easier to get a tone that is recognizable than it is to get a style that's recognizable.
Because that's not, moving on to that, I mean, just saying with what I think, obviously he's not saying like you like Marty Friedman. He picked up that influence in what you did, which didn't come out until you mentioned that, and I was like,
and so
wow, okay, it's like,
and do you know why that is? Do you know what it is that Marty does that I found revolutionary? Is he just said, "Listen, man, follow the chords." Now most of us, we started off with the blues scale, the pentatonic scale, and you rely on playing that over the chord changes.
What's the key in the whole song? It's in A. Okay, I'm going to stick to this box, and I might move it up 12 frets as well.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's like,
And then the next step is, all right, well, let's learn all 5 positions of the pentatonic, and then I can broaden the horizon of. So
you can play the same notes again and again within the
same notes again in a different place. Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
But he was like, well, no, because if you're playing E, then play like E major arpeggios, and then if it goes to D, play D major arpeggios, and then take it one step further and play 7th arpeggios. And he was just like, I don't care, it doesn't matter if it's in that key, play like a 7 arpeggio over the E and over the D, it doesn't matter, so long as it's not and this really is what happens with jazz, is if you're not interfering with what's going on with the chords, then play what you want. Like, the only rules are going to be if you fucking just do something that's really disagreeing with what's going on harmonically around you.
Yeah.
And I found that so, he does these half bends. Another thing, he goes, you're always a semitone bend away from the right note if you make a mistake.
That's great advice.
Now, that's golden advice to anyone out there, because most people, when they make a mistake, and the other thing is, like, if you mess up, don't show it. Like, if you're on stage and you mess up, don't pull a face that says I messed up. Like, do a semitone bend and own it. Make it sound like you were like, no, man, I went for that. You thought it was odd, right? And then I bent it up and it sounded choice.
Yeah, so you're right. You're totally right. You're totally right.
And so it was revolutionary to me. And I'm like, well, fuck it. You know what? Pentatonics, you're going in the back seat. Arpeggios, you're now becoming my life. And that's when all the sweet picking
Yeah.
You know, like, and you've heard me play. Like, I do a lot of sweep picking.
It's not just that with you when you play. What I like about it, it's like it's got all the technical shred parts, which almost to a point I don't like listening to by other players. But it's almost like you know exactly when to pull that back to a tasty blues phrase, and that's what I like about your playing. It's very much like Richie Kotzen, like he's playing, where literally he will go for something and go, "What?" And then I'm back to this, and it's great.
Right.
You know,
just a little taste.
Do you get what I mean? Taste. It's like chuck it in there and pull it back.
I know. Yeah, well, and that's why I think this is the point again. Like the great players that we know and listen to, and there are new players that are coming out there like that.
Mm.
It's
along with all the robots.
It's playing to the song and the emotion of what's going on within the song. You know, if it's a ballad, you know, then maybe I won't open with a massive like E sweep arpeggio that's going to go from open thick string to 24 on the.
This is bringing me back to my point about Poison and the thing. One is that the great players now, the up-and-coming players, are more in progressive metal and different styles of metal and gent and jump and everything. You know what I mean? There's all this and that.
Yeah.
No one's really writing the songs in that genre for the up-and-coming guitar players to give them the time to express what's the difference between a heavy song, a fast song, a ballad, a slow song. Those bands aren't there anymore. Do you know what I mean? That's why we keep harking back to like, well, why are the big rock bands still from like the 80s? Because they could all write songs. Yeah. Nowadays, you don't see anyone come out with, well, there's some great rock acts, but you don't hear like, the guitar players don't almost have time to express themselves with a different type of song within that band anymore, do they?
No, you're right. There's a lot of...
I mentioned, the reason why I mentioned Poison is I'm going back to Native Tongue. And so when Richie Kotzen joined Poison, completely different sounding band, but that guy could express himself in so many different... Whether it was a fast, bluesy, cheesy rock song, he knew what to play. If you make it into a ballad that sounds beautiful, that he's singing backing vocals on, he will play the most soulful solo ever. Yeah. And at the end of it, put a very, very quick lick in for like 2 beats. And then, you know what I mean? It's like
I know, and that's the beauty of that kind of playing. Have you seen his trio band yet?
Yeah.
I mean, he plays piano as good as he plays guitar. And he sings as good as he plays piano.
He sings like an absolute bastard.
It's such an amazing trio. But those kind of players where it's like, look, you got to play for the track. Like, stick a little bit of something in there just to be like, oh, I like that. That's not over the top, but it was needed, you know, for that part of it. And I would like to think that's where I went with my guitar playing when I first joined Pride. You know, that was where I was like, okay, it's a really dark song. I need to use like a dark mode. I need to create like a mood. So, you know, if I'm in the saddest of all keys,
D minor.
Oh shit, that's C minor because it's dropped. But yeah,
it's all right.
And if I need it dark,
it's all relative. It's all relative.
Then you know, you try and make sad sounds, and if it's major, make it happy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
totally.
just go with what's around you.
Totally.
And Marty Friedman, hats off to you, mate. Hats off to you. You really, him.
I've got to say hats off to my mate Jim for spotting that influence as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because you do hide it really, really well. And he's just gone like, wow. But then again, this guy's like let's talk about the same time frame. His life was guitar, you know.
Right.
And years later, he's gone, I'm really sensing some Marty Friedman influences.
That's great that he was able to get that. That's a real compliment. That's a real compliment as well. Like earlier on in your playing, you're like, someone would be like, "Oh, you sound like Slash," and you'd be like, "Piss off," you know, and then later on you're like, oh, thanks a lot, appreciate it.
I get that. It sounds like any of that. I'm like, fuck off, I just use the same guitars.
Right.
So let's talk guitars then. So what you know, I know you've got tons and tons of guitars. I mean, that video that you put up with I'll play 50 of them, you know, when you've probably got near 100, I'm guessing. So that must be quite difficult to do.
I think it's 100. I haven't counted them. It's 100 and something. My dad was a big guitar collector, and I already had like more guitars than I needed. But when he passed, I got left the majority of his collection. My sister got all of the Gretches, and he gave me pretty much everything else. And there was a very large Gibson collection within that. And so that then started this bug of, well, maybe I'll carry on that collection then, you know, and I started buying more bloody guitars, you know, so it got out of control, and I had a little bit of a cleanse a couple of years ago, just so I know that I could get rid of some guitars if I needed to, but I don't think it's dropped below the 100 mark.
Wow. I mean, I've got, well, I used to have 50, I've got about 46 now. I've not bought any, obviously, through lockdown and stuff like that. But obviously, I worked for a guitar company for a while, so like, you know, I can get them at a certain price if there was any stock twos or less than sellable. I'd get a price on those and buy those, and also like I've collected my own ones that I want to get through the years. It's took absolute years to do. It's not like I suddenly turned around and bought a load of guitars. I've been doing this since I was 16. You know what I mean? But I love it, and it's only come to fruition through many times of people telling me over the last few years, what do you do that many guitars for? But since recording songs every week, they all get used. Literally, they have been. Every guitar I've got's been used on at least one part of one song. It's like, I need a Telecaster for that. There it is.
Right, exactly.
You know, I need a Strat. Well, I've got a bunch of Strats, but I need a certain Strat. You know what I mean? They all get used. Right. You know, I'm not like that. PRS is gorgeous. My only PRS is are SEs. But my two SEs I've got are like the first run of the SEs originally made that were great. I've got a Santana.
Good. I mean, there's not a lot of difference between
I've got a Santana and a Tremonti. They're not behind me right now because I'm not using them. But yeah, the Santana I bought in America. I was over in Florida on holiday with the family in 2002. Yeah, 2002. And I was over there, and literally I went to a guitar shop, and this guitar just spoke to me. I didn't necessarily go there to buy a guitar. I went there to have a great time and picked this guitar up, and it was like, it just felt right. You know, it was the red. Remember the red one with the scratch plate, the first one that came out? And the whammy, you know, and I bought it. So it was like $500 and something with the gig bag. And at the time, the exchange rate was so good that I was like,
you got to take it back.
This is a steal. Yeah, this is the thing. You've got to take it back. So we go to the airport. And literally, I got this thing in a gig bag. There's lovely padded gig bags that give you the SE sounds. And they get there. And I was like, I want to put this on as hand luggage. And the woman behind the counter was like, you got to go and ask that guy down there. He's like airport security. And I went down there with a friend of the family we got with us at the time. We took with us. And we went down, and this big, massive guy's there. I've been told to speak to you about taking this guitar back. And he went, can I have a look at it? He made me open the case, right? So I opened the case thinking this is kosher. He's making sure there's nothing dodgy in the case, blah, 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 blah. So I open it up. Yep, no problem. He goes, can you play the blues? And I was like, yeah, show me. So I literally sat there and played some 12-bar blues to this guy. And he went, yeah, you can take it on.
Oh, do you reckon he was just checking if you could actually play the guitar?
Maybe, or maybe he thought that the guitar had got some kind of drugs or something in it, and he was making sure that I wasn't taking the piss. Or maybe he was just taking the piss out of me. But either way, that guitar came back with me, and when I went through Birmingham Airport on the way back, and declared, nope, I just walked through it on my shoulder. Happy days.
That's brilliant.
But it's an SE. I mean, I've seen that baby before. That guitar was the one you played at NAMM, wasn't it? With me, you took that to.
It is. This one is easily one of my favourites. I had some money saved up back in like 2005. I think the 20th anniversary. I think that's 2005. And at the time, Simon, our friend, was working at a place called Guitar Amp in Brighton.
GAC.
And yeah, GAC. And he said, I've got a mate at PRS. I could introduce you and see if you could get a deal. And I played Ibanez all the time up until then.
Yeah, because you were an Ibanez guy. Because even on that video, there's a bunch of Ibanezes flown into that.
Yeah, I love them. I still love them. I think they're amazing guitars. And then I went down and I had a look at them. There was about 10 of them down the shop, and I tried this one. And there's something about it, because it has this maple top on it. It's lighter for starters, which makes a 3-hour gig. Like when I played with that Wizards of Winter band that was like the Trans-Siberian Orchestra style thing, a 3-hour set with a Les Paul is a nightmare, especially when it's a 2-month tour.
It will break your shoulder and arch your back as well. They're great guitars, but they are very heavy, you know. Yeah,
which is why I have to put like 3-inch bass straps, 3-inch padded bass straps on the guitars to try and distribute the weight a little bit. Yeah. But this one with the maple top has much more of a bright sound to me anyway, and I just it's one of those kind of singy guitars for me. Just, I don't know, this buttery, it's smooth.
Yeah.
And I got 2 of them. I got this one and I've got this one. And this next one's actually my favorite, even though it's cheaper. Now this is only a standard, that's a custom.
That's the one out of the video for Rubicon Cross, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because even though it's heavier, because it's solid mahogany, and you might not be able to see, but most of the gold is greening out because of how much sweat it's had on it over the years. But this one's got a darker sound because it has no maple top on it. And so for me, especially for rhythm stuff, I know, it's just there's something buttery about the top end as well. Something really whooshy and nice.
What pickups are in that? Just standard PRS ones or upgrade them?
Yeah, these 2 I have not changed a single pickup. So because I think that they made them perfect. Like I don't see any reason in changing them.
That's great, because like a lot of people will be like, well, I've got to stick a JB in there, or I've got to stick, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So listen, the JB. I know exactly what you mean. The JB59 combo, the Seymour Duncan JB59 combo, is basically everyone's go-to like combo. But to me, they're totally unbalanced pickups. Like
me too.
I don't see together. I don't see Ibanez are really, really good at their stock pickups. I think personally are the best stock pickups in any guitar.
I agree, because like with me, my Japanese RG has got the V7 and the V8, and to me they're
V7, V8, yeah, exactly.
They're like an upgraded, slightly hotter path, but they're so balanced. They're
exactly what it is. And even if you've got V8, V7, and the S1 in the middle, if you've got 3 pickups, and those I've actually bought online to put those in other guitars. But I did end up really liking a certain Damasio pickup set, which I've put in most of my guitars. So let me find one that's got that in there. Let me see what we got here. Yeah, let's try this. God, this is going to be sacrilege to most people out there. I've got an 87 SG.
Oh, nice.
This one was owned by the Guitar Player and Bag Company. My dad bought it off. Yeah. So I did something that will horrify Gibson owners out there. I did away with absolutely everything.
You got one volume knob,
tone controls, and a second volume knob, and shifted the pickup selector to up here so it was away from what was going on down there, and then stuck the Crunch Lab Liquid Fire Damasios in there.
Oh wow!
Actually,
Yeah.
which are actually my favourite.
Petrucci pickups.
Exactly. Yeah. There's just something more screamy about them to me. Like live.
Do you know what I like about them? They're screamy but still defined and still rounded.
Exactly. So
it's not like a. Well, I don't want to sound like I'm like bitching on EMGs too much because I'm trying not to. But like my Gibson here, it's like I did this years ago because the original pickups were great, but they started to fade to me. They didn't have enough top or bottom, and it wasn't
right.
I was too much used to like basswood bodies and direct mount humbuckers like the Wolfgangs and that, because they'd give.
Yeah.
I love those pickups. So I changed them out for a Zakk Wylde set, and this guitar sounds fantastic. It's a '96 Studio, right? It's
okay.
Aging. You see all the marks there. It's aging.
Yeah.
It's naturally aging.
So that's the 81, 85s, the active ones you put in there?
Yeah, and this guitar sounds, it's only a Studio but it's I love it.
It's got fucking lively pickups in it. See, that's what...
It's great. And the neck is perfect. And I said in the podcast, I tried 10 different Gibsons. Didn't care about whether it was a custom, a standard or this is but a Studio. But literally, to me, this neck felt the best, and this is the one that played the best.
Yeah. And
saved me a lot of money, but it just felt the best to me. But these pickups, I absolutely love them, but they've only got one thing they do.
They are, and you can't really turn them down and get clean sounds. That's the tough thing. But that's why I like these ones. It's got all the angriness on the the bridge pickup. All those awesome harmonics.
Yeah.
And then if you neck pick up it's still balanced volume wise. It's like, now I can go straight to neoclassical smoothie sounds.
It's all there. Yeah.
So we'll talk about guitars in terms of how expensive they are and how much money we spend on guitars. The guitar that's worth the most that I've got is actually a custom built guitar that a guy in Switzerland called Winnie Custom Guitars made for me to my spec.
Right. Okay.
And I had to have this thing insured for 5 figures, which was easily a nightmare trying to get this thing insured. I'm going to show you this thing.
You have to give them like all the neck specs, everything to you, particular what you want.
Everything. The wood, the radius, the fret wiring, everything is to my spec.
Wow.
So any person who's into our kind of music knows that a reverse headstock was a must. Now, bear in mind, he hand drew this.
What? He hand drew all that?
Yeah. You can have a look here at the reverse headstock up here. It's got the signature on there.
That's insane.
Then have a look at the back here, what he did, like the Rubicon Cross thing.
That's immense.
He did it matte finish for me. He didn't want to do that, but look at this neck graining here as well, man.
Oh man, what's that type? Flame maple on the back, stained or
the baked maple? Yeah, you might not be able to see the line
kind of effect on it. Baked, which is more stable, which is completely more stable. Yeah. Yeah,
and the hockey stick, because I love the Vandenberg guitars. I always wanted the Vandenberg.
That just screams like Vandenberg and George Lynch to me, man.
Right, exactly. All in one. All of this is all made out of titanium.
I was going to say, is that FU Tone or is it himself? Because obviously FU Tone do the Floyd upgrades and stuff, but that's all. Yeah, that's all titanium.
Even the lockers, the lockings on the back,
even the string lock bolts and the everything is
everything.
Yeah.
So it can't rust. No. Like I can't mess it up the way I mess up other guitars. The trem system is also super cool on it. It's the most reliable trend system. I've got to be honest, there's only one thing that I did wrong when I helped him design this. I said I want just the volume control, and the pickup selector. But I completely forgot.
Old school.
Right. I completely forgot that when the trem was in, it's going to get in the way of where my pickup selector is.
Oh.
It was like a design flaw of epic proportions on my part. But again, it's got those same the Crunch Lab liquid fire combo. It's still in tune.
And you got it floating. You got it floating as well.
I got it floating, so you can go. All your trem buzzes and all that kind of stuff on the go.
Yeah.
It's a really thin radius. I can't even explain to you really. It'd be like a early 70s SG or something like that.
What, so you like them curved, not flat, basically?
Yes. Curved and small. It's a very, very lovely singing guitar. All of this stuff is luminous, so he gave me like a UV light pen that I'd charge him up before I go on stage.
Oh wow!
There's numbers on the bottom of the volume, so when I charge them up as well, so when it's completely bloody dark and I can't see anything, I can see exactly where. Because I'm one of them people, I don't have a clean channel. I'm
the same. I'm the same.
I dial it down, you know. That's how I'd rather have my clean done. Do you know what I mean?
I'm exactly the same.
Anyway, this is the most self-indulgent guitar that I own, and God bless him, he made this for me for absolutely $0.00.
Really?
Yeah, and I fly the flag for him as often as I can. It's a beautiful, beautiful, thing.
Has he got a website?
Yes, he does.
We'll
which I don't know right now. But
well, we'll make sure we put the links in the description of this video. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, his Facebook page, Winnie, W-I-N-I, Winnie Custom Guitars, and he made Joel Hoekstra's 13 guitar as well.
Oh wow, okay.
So, and lovely guy, lovely guy.
So what are you playing through tonight to get the tones?
I am playing through my Kemper.
I was going to guess it was a Kemper, just because
it's my own profile of my Black Star amp.
Oh, what, Series 1 or something?
It is actually the Stage 100.
Okay.
It's when they basically went back to a Marshall sounding amp.
Yeah.
And actually, they built me a custom guitar for free too, because they have a company called Gordon Smith.
They do, yeah, they do.
And they built me a guitar as well. The only thing about those guitars, they insist every guitar has a brass nut on them. And I'm not a huge fan of the brass nut sound.
What, too toppy?
Little too toppy for me, yeah.
Yeah.
But that Stage 100, I profiled it, and I was like, I've actually done a really good job. I got Rick Beato's engineer, Ken Lanyon, over to my place.
To mic the cab and everything. To
mic the cab, get all the miking stuff done, making sure I wasn't phasing or anything. Just used like a 57 and what is that one? What is that? I forget what that is now. I forget what that mic was. Just two mics into my, Focusrite, and he got this great sound. And I took that sound and I went to Michael Wagner. I don't know if you know who Michael Wagner is. He's a producer.
I've heard.
And he did everyone from, Extreme, Skid Row, Metallica, all of those bands. And I met him through some mutual friends, and I've become quite good friends with Mike. So when I was up in Nashville, he only uses Kemper now. Like he has three or four Kempers.
Don't even write mic amps anymore in the studio.
He profiled every amp and cab that he has in his studio, and I think he sold on a bunch of his stuff. And now he's just that's all I do. Everything comes through. It's huge speakers in a studio. It's amazing, amazing studio. The new Skid Row album, I think they just did all of their stuff through Kempers in there.
It doesn't surprise me, man. It doesn't surprise me.
I went over and I said, hey, is there any chance I could bring in this profile I've just done? I'd like you to hear it. So I go into his studio. It was when Summer Nam was on in Nashville.
Yeah.
And I go in there and he plugs it in, he loads it into his Kemper, brings it through his big speakers. And you know what I'm talking about? When you go into a recording studio, they have speakers that look like there's 5 cones in like one. You know, it's the real deal. You're getting every frequency possible through them.
Yeah.
And he plugs it in there and he's like, chunk, chunk, chunk. Oh, yeah, just play a little bit. And he plays and he messes around with the sounds and plays around a little, tweaks it. And all of a sudden just dials in this really lovely, warm yet crisp sound. I'm like, what did you do? And he's like, well, you probably did that on some home speakers, right? You know, just like a this and a tweeter. And I'm like, he goes, you have to be able to hear. It starts going into the technical, you know, jargon about frequencies. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
Anyway, I just said, look, is there any way I could keep that sound that you just made? And he's like, yeah, hit save, put it back on the jump drive. And I A-B'd them. And I have to say, it's what went from what I thought was a good sound to a great sound. And I use that now on all of my recordings here in the studio.
Well, the thing is, you've got to think with these kind of things. It's like, well, handy enough, it's there because I've been recording, but I do all the songs through that. And I've got...
What is that?
It's a Helix. Can you see it? It's a Line 6 Helix Stomp.
I got you. I know exactly what you're talking about there. Yep.
Yeah. So I've got the full Helix, which is under my feet at the moment.
Yep.
That's my gigging rig for the last 3 years. I've got all the real amps, which I've collected through my time. But if I'm just recording and getting ideas down and throwing a song out a week out, this thing is, it's just, what we say, the Kemper-wise, it's so authentic to what I'm after. I can dial the sound in quickly with it. I can tweak it infinitely. And for recording this laptop, which I'm talking to you right now through, I don't think I can beat it. It's fantastic. And when I play live, it literally will integrate with everything I'm doing live too. It's like,
I know.
You see so many people playing with Kempers now, you know, it's like turn up to a venue, PA please, done.
Well, especially if you fly, like I do a lot of fly dates.
It makes perfect sense. It makes
perfect sense. I think in the end, where we're probably going with this is that venues or backline companies are going to be able to provide these where all you really need to do is bring this with you on tour.
Yeah, and drop
and
it.
Basically, all of your rigs are in there. You load it into the Kemper, and it's basically the same as having your home sound. You just rent the unit and the foot controller.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Or like I do, you can just take them on the plane if you have the right carrying cases and stuff.
Yeah.
And yes, do I like playing through stacks? I love playing through stacks because there's probably just some snobby part of me that just thinks that even though I use this technology now, maybe there's something better about that 4x12. I don't know what it is, but it's kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where it's like, it's like, hang on, you look like my wife, you sound like my wife, but something's slightly off. That's how I am with like Kempers and stuff now. It's a new world. It's a new world of sound, and I know a lot of audiophiles out there will basically be like, no, it's not the same. But you know what, man? When I can carry my sound with me to any venue across the world, I would rather have that than turn up like I did to the Monsters of Rock pre-party, where all I've got is a 5150 with a broken tube in it, and that's all I've got.
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. It's like I can carry this in my gig bag with my stuff. And if all else fails, my sounds are set on here. I can have clean rhythm lead into any power amp or any PA and be like, I can get through it. I can do the whole gig. I can do the whole gig. You know, I can do it. You know, it's mental. You know,
and I bought the powered version as well, just so I could literally dump it on top of a 4x12 cab. And what's beautiful about them, what's beautiful about these units now is that if you've got a powered version of these profiling heads, you dump it on top of the 4x12, you get your stage sound through the 4x12, you send the rest of your sound out to the front of house with 2 XLRs, so you can get stereo sound with your effects at least, and you can change the volume on your unit. It's not changing anything out front, which is amazing, because it's amazing for sound engineers, because they don't have to worry about that shit.
No, they've got their stuff dialed in.
They've got their stuff dialed in.
Dial your own on stage sound up so you feel it a bit more, and
exactly. And I'm still like that. I don't like in-ears. I've done a couple of tours of in-ears and I just can't. It's the bottom end. I can't. There's something about feeling the bass sound.
As I call it, it's trouser flappage.
Trouser flapping. That's exactly what it is. I like that. That explains it perfectly.
So after this eventful year, we got some good stuff coming up. Then what's coming out next for you when you're all open? And just to finish off, we'll what's next from Mr. Green?
Oh, do you know what? It's odd because I've kind of taken a little bit of a back seat with the guitar playing and just trying to, I don't know, get back into some family life. You know, my son's 8 years old now, so I've been just doing a lot more hanging and trying to get a little perspective about what do I do when this is all over? You know, how do I integrate myself back into society again? I've got a tour planned for next year with Tyketto in England in March. I'm working on some stuff here in the background. Some instrumental stuff, maybe. I also did a band back in Chicago called Spacewolf, which was a band that I actually sang in. And the only reason I sang in it is because we couldn't find a bloody singer. So I did a demo example and I said, look, just if you can find someone that can sing better than me, then just get them. It doesn't matter. Just get someone that will sing. And we never did. And the band said that what I did was good enough. So we released a single and it's out there on iTunes. The band's called Spacewolf. The song's called Valhalla. And it's basically like stoner rock, like Red Fang, that kind of stuff. And all we did was just sing about space and just dumb shit. It wasn't like, we weren't talking about love or political matters. We're like, let's just make shit up. Let's write about space, or like, you know, we've got a song that was just about, you know, some demented fisherman, you know, like just odd songs. But it was really good fun.
Old Greg from the Almighty Boosh.
Right. So you can have a look at that. I mean, but, you know, if anyone's listening, if they want to have a listen to that instrumental EP, the Unveil EP, the Spacewolf singles out there. Me and CJ from Rubicon Cross, we've been talking about maybe writing some material again.
Amazing.
So until we get to the point where I like being with someone when I'm writing music. So it's all very well to get some riffs together, which is kind of what I'm doing now. Just, you know, I have a folder on my MacBook that's just like a plethora of little videos of riffs, and when writing time comes closer, I'll go in there and maybe fit 4 or 5 together and think, all right, that could be the starting of a song. Let's do something there. But right now, just weathering the storm, my man.
I think that's the way forward, my man. Really do. You know,
well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me, man. I'm about to go. I'm about to go and enjoy being out in a restaurant, which I know you can't do.
I'll tell you about that in a few months. But man, it's been amazing catching up with you. I mean, I could talk with you all night, but we'll catch up off camera for a bit soon, because just talk about random guitars and stuff. But thank you so much for coming on. And I'm going to say to everyone that's following the channel, just please give a subscribe, a like, and a share, because I appreciate all of it and it helps me out loads. Thanks to Chris. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
It was my pleasure, mate. It was really good catching up with you.
And I've loved staying up and having a beer with you as well.
Oh, yeah, I do appreciate you staying up. I forget it's probably gone midnight over there right now, isn't it?
Yeah, man, that's all right. We're all night owls now. Nothing means anything anymore time-wise to us if we're in lockdown. But thank you so much, and I will catch you all soon. See you, Chris. Take it easy, my friend.
Thanks, mate. Take care.
Ta-da.
You've been listening to the Beer and Gear podcast with Chris Taylor.